So, welcome to this week's bread review. And today we have a special guest. I'm not only joined by my assistant, Gaia, that you already know, but also by Theodoros Theodoridis, who is the creator of all the breads we have tasted so far, and also the person that baked today's bread. Theo, why you don't introduce yourself to my at least 7 followers?
Hi, I'm Theo. I like baking bread, and Timo likes eating bread. So we made a pact to bake some breads for him to review.
Yes. So when did you get the idea of baking bread? Like this is something that I think not a lot of people do as a hobby.
I don't remember. It was a few years ago. What did I do? I really don't remember how it started. I think at some point I decided I like baking, like cakes and stuff, and then I decided, yeah, let's bake a bread. And one bread became two breads became three, and now we're on the nth bread with n larger than probably 100. So
Yes, and your breads now are quite good. Was it always like this? Like would you say, okay, you just make a bread and it will be good, or was this kind of a long evolution? And in the beginning, it was like
still sometimes I fail. Today I almost failed again. Now I would say that it's more likely that I will bake a good bread than not a good one. But there was definitely a lot of learning involved. And I think it's very easy to make a bread that, like, if you follow an easy recipe, that will succeed. It won't be the best bread, but if you want something more special, then the chance of failure is a bit higher.
Okay, and do you think this is something that is reproducible? So once you made a good bread, can you just make the same bread over and over and over again, or is it a bit of luck? Like okay, today
I'd say that there's some randomness involved, but you can control it a lot.
Okay.
And like for example, by using the same recipe every time and only tweaking it a bit, or by understanding how what makes a bread and how, like, mechanically how a dough behaves, so that you understand a bit. Oh, like I need to maybe add a bit of flour here because this would be a flat disc. Or maybe I didn't add enough flour. This doesn't feel too good, but I mean, with experience,
So
you can.
maybe let's start cutting your bread and let's see how it looks from the inside. So I can say that it smells very good.
This bread is a bit. So usually, the first thing that you might notice on this bread is that it doesn't have a scoring scar. Like usually with a bread, you either score it some pattern and you see it like on the baked bread because it expands and you don't want it to explode, so you want the scar to be where it expands. But the problem with this one was that I already figured out that it might be a flat disc, so I didn't score it to increase the chances that it comes as a round shape but not a flat one. And this one has also fruit inside and a lot of seeds, so let's see how it looks on the inside. And I will take your advice and cut a very thick
Yes, I find this makes it much more enjoyable. So
I mean, the nice thing is that you can hear the crust making sounds, but since the corner is the best part, I will share it with you.
Okay, then let's see the bread. Yeah, you can see it has a lot of seeds.
And some fruit. These are various kinds of berries. So the problem with this one is that I added frozen berries and they were very wet. And that's why I almost failed at this dough. But yeah, let's see.
It's still warm from the baking process.
I think the cranberries are a really nice addition.
Yes, they definitely give it a nice sourness.
But I think this bread needs a bit of butter. And by a bit, I mean a lot. And what I figured out is that with with so many seeds inside, the bread also lasts quite longer. I don't know. I think the seeds absorb a lot of moisture and then they release it, and then it doesn't dry out. We need to do further testing.
So to be honest, I was quite surprised how long your bread lasts and stays very tasty. So usually when you buy bread in the supermarket, of course it lasts long, but I always thought this is because of preservatives that are added. And then I bought some bio bread once in Germany that dried out after 1 day to the point where it was really no longer usable as a bread. Maybe, I don't know, as an ingredient in some other cooking, but definitely not as a bread.
So one thing why this lasts very long is that it's quite the pH is quite low, because this is made with sourdough, and then the sourdough contains lactic acid bacteria, and I think I haven't measured it, but I've seen online other people do it, and then the pH of the dough is around 4. And that makes it not a very hospitable place for microorganisms. And it also contains a lot of water, so that's why it stays moist for a long time. I think I will have a second slice as well. So how would you rate this bread?
So I would say this is probably one of the most interesting breads that I've tasted from you. I think this bread is perfect for very simple spreadings. Of course, because of the fruits, this is quite acidic. So I wouldn't want to eat this, for example, with honey. I don't think this would pair well, or with jam, that is also acidic, but anything with a lot of fat inside, like cheese, butter, quark, like what is quark in English? I don't know.
I think you call it quark.
Okay, it's the same word, good. So anything with a lot of fat will definitely work. I also think hummus actually. So hummus also is quite acidic, but it has this kind of other flavor of seeds, of the sesame seeds, no? Is it sesame?
Yeah, but if you want sesame seeds, what about tahini mixed with
Yes,
honey?
exactly so. I would say tahini is what gives the hummus most of the flavor.
But this is mixed with honey.
Okay. We can try it.
I'll put some here. Well, the problem is it's a bit elastic, so it's a bit difficult to spread, but this is a very popular spread in Greece.
Okay.
Do you think your assistant wants to participate?
Yes, I think. She definitely wants to. evaluate the quality of the bread as well. Yeah, I think you should jump up a bit, otherwise you're not in the video. Okay.
I guess her teeth are not very well suited for chewing on such material.
I think she's very good at chewing at everything. But
Now, to be honest, I was kind of disappointed with the bread. I was expecting a complete failure, but I'm quite happy. Actually, my original plan was to use figs inside, dried figs, but I didn't have any, and I realized it a bit late.
no, I think having sour fruits is actually a very good idea. I think it makes the bread almost possible to just being eaten alone as a complete dish. You don't need anything on top.
Yeah, with all the seeds that are in there, so I think it's nutritionally it's also quite good. And what I like about this bread is that it's also very easy to digest.
And what would you recommend for our audience that obviously is interested in bread eating dogs and people talking about eating bread? So how to start making bread or how to consume good bread? Like, would you say, okay, go to this specific bakery or just start making your own bread, but then you need to buy an oven and
I mean,
specific
usually
equipment?
people, I think in most apartments you have an oven and that's what you need.
So a standard oven is really good.
There are some stuff you can buy to make it a bit better or a bit more easy. But if you just want to make a bread, I think the simplest is to make a bread with yeast, because this is made with, maybe I can show this. A sourdough starter. So I have mine here that I actually fed a few hours ago. So this thing here is flour and water. And this is where all the microorganisms live. And you mix it like essentially flour, water, salt and this to make the bread. And what I will do with this is just fry it directly on olive oil, because it's also quite nice to eat it like that. And if you don't have this, you can just use the yeast you buy at the store. But I don't know, I think for me, I really like as I said, I like baking. And I like the process of making stuff. And this is something really nice because you get to also eat something really good. And yeah. I don't think baking bread is for everyone because you really must be into it. And that's why I have continued doing it. Else, if your purpose is just to eat bread, there are way easier ways to acquire bread. But
I think, as with many things, what happens over time is that we kind of converge on the most marketable type of bread, right? So if you look into what beers exist, of course you have very tasty, very different beers, but in most countries the beer is some standard pills that basically doesn't taste like anything, and I think with bread this is very similar.
Yeah, for sure. I have this
standard bread that you buy in the supermarket actually doesn't taste like anything. And that's why people cut very thin slices and then put a shitload of stuff on top, so that it's almost they are not eating bread, they're eating the stuff on top. And they just use the bread to hold it together, basically. And then making beer by yourself is definitely not simple, and you definitely need specific equipment, specific conditions for storage. But I think for bread this is
it's
probably
easier.
much simpler and kind of a useful thing for people to start doing, especially for me, because I like eating bread. So if more people make bread, then we have more good bread available. So,
But I think what you said, that the standard supermarket bread is a bit underwhelming. I have this problem. If I don't bake my own bread, I really don't eat bread because I don't like it. It feels like it's either usually too dry or tasteless. And it's also because I'm used to this, because I think for a lot of people this would be too strong in terms of flavor. At least I've heard this already from a few
maybe,
people.
but I mean, for a lot of people, if you give them an IPA the first time, they don't like it.
Yeah.
And then you come back to it once you realize, okay, this is how beer could taste. You realize only later what you are missing.
But I think I should go to the oven. Because
Yes, Theo, I don't want to interrupt you from more baking, so thank you very much
You're
for
welcome.
being a guest here, and thank you very much for this bread and all the breads before and all the breads
But
that you are baking in the future.